Welcome to Radio KAL, the Superman podcast brought to you by supermanhomepage.com. This is show number 90, released on June 27th, 2012. My name is Steve Eunice, and I'm joined by my good friend Scotty V. Hey, Scott.
Hello, everyone. How's it going?
It's going well. You've really been riling up the fandom out there with some of your great Scott videos of late.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should cut back a bit, scale it back. You know, I'm told that I'm oftentimes argumentative. I'm not really attempting to be that way. I just.
But you're right, and they're wrong.
Well, what can I say? You know. Yeah, I mean. I think that it starts in one place and it ends up in another. I mean, oftentimes the same people who get riled up are the same people who are the ones who continue to go at me that Batman is cooler and better and is well thought out and he's a strategist and it makes perfect sense that he should be able to take out Superman. And I just don't. It really, you know, people talk about being taken out of the world when they watch a movie or a TV show by something that just doesn't sit right.
Yeah.
And I realize we're watching shows about people who can spin webs and fly around and people who, you know, can have any gadget they want because they're that rich. And it's not the real world. I know this.
Sure.
I'm not looking for the real world. I'm looking to be immersed in the story and be able to buy it. And as I've said on many of the great Scotts, I think every once in a while, a story could come about where a regular human being triumphs, and oftentimes that's all we see in movies and TV shows. It's about how the human spirit and the human ability is able to is able to beat the odds. So when you have a Batman story every 2 weeks where he's beating the odds and destroying the entire Justice League and taking on Superman and people are like, well, why doesn't that make sense? It seems to me that they're playing dumb just for the sake of trying to annoy Superman fans.
Or
so
put Batman on that pedestal.
Yeah, I come back at them, and sometimes they don't like it, I guess, you know. But hey, I like Batman too. To be completely honest, I said it in one of the vids. I mean, I like. He's not my favorite. I like all superheroes.
Yeah.
You know, I will see any movie that looks good, that's about a superhero, whether it's my favorite or not. And you know, I look forward to every story I'm going to read.
Now,
about that.
Yep. Now, talking about Superman, we'll talk about movies. We always like to start off with the movie topics. And we've had some pretty big news about Man of Steel. We're now down to within the 12-month countdown of when the movie will be released. We're in the end of June recording this, and it will be June next year that we'll be seeing the movie. And this past month, we've had quite a bit of news, as I said. Probably the biggest one was the fact that Hans Zimmer will be scoring the movie.
Yeah, that's a big name.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's obviously been tied up very closely with Nolan, having done all the Batman films and Inception, and obviously has such a large list of movies that he's scored, that he's done the music for, you know, from everything from Lion King, you know, right up to, like I said, Inception, and has been, you know, nominated for Oscars and is really one of the big names in movie scores, you know, as a composer. And you know, if there's anybody that could, you know, live up to the Superman theme by John Williams, I'm guessing Hans Zimmer is the go-to man at the moment.
Well, I mean, I find myself hoping. I think that I'm hoping against hope, because based on what I have heard with the Batman theme, and maybe it'll be different since Superman is supposed to be a more optimistic, positive character. But this was another kind of disagreement I got into with a Batman fan. That is that you can walk out of these Batman movies humming a theme, and
you can't.
I don't find that I can do that.
No.
I don't feel that there is a definitive theme. I feel like there's a lot of dark riffs and there are some interesting motifs, but I don't really find that there's a da 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 da. There's nothing like that.
Yeah.
You know, as much as the campy Adam West show was, everybody and their mother, and now some of the kids know that theme song. And not that you would have that in a serious movie, but Exactly.
It's my turn to sing behind you while you talk.
Well, of course. We got to take our turns on this. It's a back and forth kind of a relationship. But yeah, and obviously all the John Williams movies, everybody knows the Jaws theme. Everybody knows Superman and Raiders of the Lost Ark and Star Wars, because these are
iconic.
Massive themes. I don't really think, and I'm not by no means am I a orchestral music specialist, but I don't know any Hans Zimmer theme song that I could sing to you right now. But if you mentioned to many people, not even specifically Superman fans, do you know the Superman music, and started singing it with them, they would eventually catch up and they would know what it was. Because they're So I mean, I hope, and hopefully it's, for me, it's different than but this goes along the same line as the movie being infused with Nolanism from the beginning. Hopefully it's not as drab and dark and just much of a downer as the Batman movies were.
Mm-hmm. Well, we wait to see just what Hans Zimmer does with the musical score for Man of Steel. There are some people who think that he still might include some of the John Williams theme, like just with, like, say, with James Bond. You get different creators, different composers come on for each movie, but they still have that basic, James Bond theme that they can include in the movie, and maybe Hans Zimmer will decide to do that. Same with Harry Potter. There's an ongoing Harry Potter theme that, even though different composers came on for all 8 movies, certain themes, certain elements of the Harry Potter theme were used.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I could see that, and it makes sense from a certain standpoint if you look at it from the James Bond view, because there were many James Bond movies in many different eras, and you could almost say that these new movies are starting over, and yet they're more modern and in the modern time.
Yep.
And when they reintroduced James Bond, as played by the guy who's playing him now, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but they didn't even play the main theme until the very end. I think when the credits went.
Yep.
Same with the new Star Trek movie. They played the old They played the old television theme song to Star Trek at the end of the movie, which was neat. It was nostalgic. It was a cool way to kind of bring it in. And now maybe in the sequel they'll have a few more strains, but you still have new music as well. It's very definitive, the Superman theme.
It is.
My only concern is that it's too tied into Donner and Christopher Reeve, and that Superman Returns had trouble getting out from under that umbrella. Now, part of that, of course, was that it certainly seemed like they were going for that, not just with the music, but
everything.
They were a part of that series, even though it's been 20 years or whatever. So hopefully, if they do that, it's kind of in really big moments or heroic moments, or at the end during the credits, but also at the same time that Zimmer is able to come up with his own definitive. There are two different schools of thought on this, I think, at least that I have. One is you're John Williams and you're a theme song writer.
Yep.
He also scores the movie, but almost every theme, almost every character has their own separate theme. You look at one of those old Star Wars records. I used to have them, the ones with the fold-out, album covers. Yep. And they had all the songs listed, and then they were named after either a place or a person, and you could remember in the movie exactly where that theme song was, and it gave you that Mos Eisley Cantina feeling, and you knew that that's what you were playing. Same with the Kent theme. There it is. I don't know if anybody will be able to hear it, but Steve's a little shy sometimes when it comes to his singing.
Oh, I didn't want to be rude.
So I haven't bought any of the Hans Zimmer soundtracks, so I don't know if he... It seems to me he's less a theme song writer and more a movie scorer, which might make him more respected or valuable or consider, among his peers, he might be considered less, kitschy. I don't know if kind of like that Call Me Maybe song that's out now and everybody's jumping around about. I want to kill myself every time I hear it. But every time my band has a gig, they come up to us several times and they ask for it. And then when we're on break, they play it multiple times on repeat.
Oh, God.
Because it's this hooky, kind of catchy song, but it's kitsch. I mean, I don't think that she's going to be a big superstar. I don't think she's
not going to stay around forever.
Hans Zimmer, which seems to have more versatility and has the ability to kind of set the whole mood of a film with whatever he's writing, might be exactly what people are looking for when they're thinking of overall talent, as opposed to, I love John Williams, and obviously he's written some of the most fantastic and memorable theme songs, but maybe they're more theme songs than they are a score to a movie. I'm not exactly sure. Again, I'm not an expert on it, but hopefully he has some memorable stuff in there, as well as making a really set-toned soundtrack.
Yep, we'll see what happens there. Now, the other stuff that was going on with Man of Steel was that they announced the licensing partners for the film, which was no real surprise. There was obviously things like Lego in there and other Warner Brothers licensing partners that are pretty much standard across their films. But they also, at this licensing expo that they had there, were the costumes on display, which I thought was very interesting because, for a long time they were trying to hide all the elements of the costume, and, you weren't allowed to see when Russell Crowe was filming, he'd come out from the filming and would be in a massive big black overcoat thing or, almost like a Snuggie kind of thing that would hide whatever costume he was wearing underneath. But now here they are, these costumes are on display in glass cabinets for everyone to see and take photos of. And we saw the Superman costume up close, we saw Jor-El's costume, and what I'm assuming was Faora's costume, all on display there at the licensing expo.
Yeah, I think what happens is, especially in this day and age, you get to a point where you realize that it's no longer George Lucas time back in the day when he was able to film Empire Strikes Back under a different name and nobody had any idea what he was doing. There are internet people all over. There are people with phones. There are people with, I think that enough pictures, enough photos, enough steals of the set were showing up, and the idea that there may be more leaks and there may be more things coming out, and people saying, well, what is this costume? It looks like he's a 80s rock band guy. What's the deal? And I think they maybe want to put their own spin on it and try to make it look a little more regal and a little more impressive than in some of these. It's the same as when we were getting early shots of Cavill in the suit, and people were saying, look at his legs, look how skinny they are, look at this, look at that, look how blurry it is, why doesn't he have a cape? Because people are just getting bits and pieces. You get a shot when Russell Crowe turns around and now the robe's open a little bit and you can see the inside of it slightly, but it doesn't really give you the whole sense of what they're going for. And I think I love that they're on display, and I thought all the pictures were great.
Yeah, and it gives that real neo-medieval feel that they've been talking about for Krypton with Jor-El's costume and Faora's costume. You really get a sense of a dark and gritty type of costume, and they have a certain look about them that is quite unique.
Yeah, I really like it.
Superman, anyway.
I think it's and I like Superman's uniform. I know that a lot of fans are still upset that it looks different, but I don't have the same issues that a lot of people seem to have, the issue that it looks like something out of an 80s Marvel comic. I keep hearing that. Same with the New 52 uniform in the comics. But, I just think it looks a little more like maybe something that he based on his home planet's heritage, and it looks kind of cool. It looks functional. I like the extra texture on it. I said the same thing about the Returns uniform. I like the extra texture. I think that, and I don't believe that anybody really thinks we could pull off just plain sky blue tights in the movie. We're just not in that age anymore.
Anymore, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think. And I also hear people make fun of the fact that that Cavill's suit might be molded to look more muscular. And again, they've done it with almost every superhero in the modern age.
Exactly.
When Christopher Reeve made the movie, they had a real problem with making any type of physical musculature show through plain tights. So they did give him shoulder pads, and they did give him some padding, and that's not necessarily to say he's a skinny runt and didn't train. He did have training as well, and he was bodybuilding, and he was a little larger. But he was a much lankier, thinner, skinnier Superman than, say, Dean Cain or Henry Cavill. If you've seen pics of Henry Cavill with his shirt off in some of those shots, the guy is pretty muscular and
definitely.
pretty big, and more so than Christopher Reeve ever was, from my point of view.
Yep.
And I hear people saying, well, Christopher Reeve didn't need padding, and I think, again, that's people that are still trying to hold on to Chris Reeve and say he was the best and he'll always be the best. And that's fine. Everybody has their own feelings on it, and I know we miss him, and, you know, it was part of our youth and our growing up and our lives, you know, but it's later now, and it's time to hopefully move on so that Superman can be back where he belongs, in my view, and that's at the top with box office success and people happy that he's there and toys and everything else.
Exactly.
So, and I think these costumes are a nice step in that direction, and you know, having some molding on it so that it looks more impressive is not, I don't think is really a problem.
Yeah, it's not detrimental to Henry Cavill. It's not a slight on him of any kind. You know, Christopher Reeve wore wigs in some of the films, and you know, George Reeves wore a girdle towards the end of his career. I mean, there are always enhancements, whether they can be seen or not seen. They're always or known or not known. We're talking about make believe. We're talking about movie magic. You know, so it's you know,
Henry Cavill.
Henry Cavill isn't really going to fly. They're going to have to use wires.
He's not?
No, you know, it's...
Oh, next you're going to tell me there's no Santa Claus.
Oh, well, are your daughters asleep?
Yes, they are. Don't say it, though. Don't say it. I will not accept it. Because I watched the Superman Lois and Clark show, and Clark looked out the window and saw Santa Claus.
Yeah, and he turned up in Smallville, too.
It was there. So, you know, let's not... No. Just simmer down.
Exactly. Sorry. Now,
but yeah, I mean, as far as that, it's not. You know, you were saying it's not detrimental to Henry Cavill or whatever. You know, these we are human beings, exactly. And Superman is not a human being, that's and right. he's pretty much the perfect specimen of a man. Now, to make that look as plausible as we can, we sometimes need to have enhancements and things of that nature, you know. So it's not all that far out to up the ante. You know, these movie stars, they wear makeup too, by the way.
Yeah, I saw. I've heard.
You know, so.
Now, moving away from Superman, from Man of Steel, there's been talk about a Justice League movie for quite a while now, and Variety actually reported that Will Beall, who I've not heard too much of, but he's supposedly been signed on as the scriptwriter for a Justice League movie, and we'll just wait and see what happens there. Will
Beall. Well, the name doesn't exactly strike fear into the hearts of men, but hey, we're all excited about the possibility of a Justice League movie, especially after the Avengers and the Avengers' success. Now, I guess Warner Brothers, or the rumor is that Warner Brothers said that this guy was hired in anticipation for knowing that the Avengers was going to be such a success, and that they wanted to get started on their own version of a superhero team-up movie. But clearly, all this talk of a Justice League movie is based on the idea that the Avengers was so successful, and any business, any company would want to tap into that and try to have some of that for themselves.
Yeah, now, like I said, Will Beall, we didn't really know his name between you and I, but the Variety report says that he's the scriptwriter for the Gangster Squad, which neither of us have seen. But he's also a bit of a favourite there at Warner Brothers at the moment, because he's writing the Lethal Weapon reboot, and also a remake of Logan's Run, which are probably very big deals. You know, they're both got cult followings and a big name movies. So we'll wait and see whether or not this guy has the writing chops to do a Justice League movie justice.
No, I love the Lethal Weapon movies.
Yeah.
It's a lot of reboots going on nowadays, and I think being that we have modern effects now, and movies can be made on computers, and you can do just about anything. I think something like Logan's Run may benefit from the idea that we can now have the monsters, the effects, whatever it is that they have in there that weren't present in the original movie. Mm-hmm. They also changed the story in the original movie and made the age different. And some fans of the movie of the book were disappointed that it wasn't. So they have a chance here to kind of remake it in a more true way, true to the story way that they might be going for. So we'll see as he moves on with those projects how his scripts come out, and I guess it's not officially announced yet, but no. The idea that he is going to write it, and also we don't know when it's happening or if it's happening. I still stick to the idea that it might be beneficial to kind of build up the franchise the way they did with Avengers before they just jump right in. But I understand the idea of a quick fix. I understand the idea of hoping to get paid now rather than later. But you may find that when you take the quick, easy way out, it doesn't quite work the way that the longer, harder road does.
No, and we know that these kind of things can fall over pretty quickly. I mean, a previous Justice League movie had actors cast and shipped out to Australia, and they were, well within their, well on their way towards making the movie, and then the pin got pulled. So, anything can happen at any time with any movie before it's not really official until it's on the big screen.
Indeed. Who knows what's going on?
Yeah. Now, talking about movies that are not on the big screen but on the small screen, well, depending on what size screen you've got, Superman vs. the Elite, the Blu-ray and DVD release from Warner Brothers. The animated film was, I don't know if you've seen it yet, but I've put up my review on the website, and I've got to say it's probably the most adult of all the Superman animated releases to date.
Well, that is very high praise. I have not seen it yet. Time just seems to be flying by. I mean, I remember being excited about this several months ago and saying, really? It's that much time away? And here it's already come and gone. It's already out, and I don't have it yet. You would think that the day it was released, I would be on board. I had no idea it came up on us this quickly.
It did.
And you would think, and I've heard from a lot of different people who say they either liked the movie or kind of thought it was okay or whatever, that the animation is definitely not their favorite, and we were hearing that before it was released. You would think by looking at the way it looks that it would not be the most adult movie released as of yet, but your claim is that it does.
Yeah, the only down point of the whole film is the design of the characters. I think what they were doing, I don't know, whether they thought that the material of this film was too adult, and then they thought they need to kid it down by having a more animated, cartoony style to lessen the impact of the actual, story elements. I don't know if that was their thinking or not, but it's probably one of the more cartoony-looking character designs for the film, for any of the animated films. But yet the content, the story, are quite adult. You've got people being killed. You've got, we're talking about the atomic skull actually drains the life out of people, and they just kind of melt away. And then you've got the elite, just killing people, and there's wanton destruction, and there's a lot of harsh language, and even Superman's doesn't shy away from using a swear word or two here or there. So it's quite brutal in the story, and it matches the original story from Action Comics 775 quite well. And you would think that it would, seeing as though the writer Joe Kelly, who wrote the original comic book, did the screenplay adaptation for the film. So he stays very true to his original story, and it's like I said, it's quite brutal and quite adult in its content. But unfortunately, the animation style and the character designs don't match that.
Well, obviously we knew about the animation going in, and so that's unfortunate. But I think it's a stylized thing, and based on what you're saying, I'm probably going to be okay with it because of the actual content that's there. I remember watching the old Superman animated series, and one of my favorite character arcs was the parasite, at least in the early episodes. I thought it was really neat the way they brought him to life on screen, and the one thing that I always laughed at when I watched it was that he would drain these people, and then they would always make sure that the camera went back to the person and showed their head fall over, or their eyes blink, or their breathing, or they'd sigh, or so that we knew in a kids show that they weren't killed. Whereas if they wouldn't have gone back, we could still say maybe they weren't killed, or maybe they were. You could take it however way you wanted, but I guess based on ratings and what they had to do back then, and who the show was meant to be watched by, they had to go back and show us that the people weren't dead. So not that I'm an advocate of people dying, but I like the idea that it's more dire, it's more serious, and it takes on a more, you got to be more urgent if you're Superman, that people are really, people's lives are really at stake and something real is going on.
Yeah. I was interested in the fact that, with a lot of these other animated films, from back with the one that Darwin Cook's, what was it, the Justice League? New Frontier. And then even with Superman, Batman, they used, the style from the comic books. And this one, they just went away totally from the style of the comic book story. And, even that story in itself had a particular style that was quite different to, the other comic book artists. But they strayed, quite a bit from the original style of the art from that comic book, which is something that they've kind of tried to they've actually tried to stick to the comic book artwork seen in the original comic books that these movies are based on, and yet here they totally went the opposite way.
Yeah, it was an interesting move. As you said before, I wonder if it's because they were trying to lighten it up in tone, where the story itself is much darker and heavier.
Yeah.
A lot of younger kids, at least what we hear from the people who aren't Superman fans, that Superman is for babies and for kids, and he's not adult, and do tend to get excited when they see a cartoony-looking Superman and want their parents to get it for them, and this might not be the way to go if that's what you're looking for, but they might have thought that with the look of it, it might attract some parents who don't know anything about it to get it for their kids.
Yeah, and it's always interesting that the cover images don't match the artwork inside, so you can't even say, if they saw it on the shelf, they might think that this looks cartoony, because the design of the cover is nothing like either the comic book or the animation style. So I don't know.
When I saw that cover too, I thought, wow, this looks like, and I was hoping that would be the animation.
That wouldn't have been bad, yeah.
And then when they released the other animation, I thought, that's weird that they did that. But yeah, you're right. So I guess that theory goes down the tubes. But that's okay. It's not surprising. If you listen to any of the comments of people who have watched my Great Scott segments, I'm generally wrong and ill-informed anyway, so...
No, but they do that with all the covers, really. I haven't seen one cover that matches the artwork inside, except for, say, Young Justice and those ones. But I'm talking about the animated films. The artwork for the cover seems to have been done either before or by a totally different artist, and never really matches what's actually in the film, so maybe that's just a creative choice.
Yeah, maybe. Or, it could be that they are trying to interest other people by the cover. They a lot of times we have reviews of the monthly comic books on the site, and a lot of times you'll hear Michael Bailey or somebody say, this cover is not, something that would pull me. If I wasn't buying these books to review for the site, or if I wasn't collecting Superman books, I would not buy it based on this cover, because, and the cover is something that, with comic books, is supposed to be on the shelf and make you want to look at it.
Yep.
So I think maybe the same thing can be happening with movie covers.
Definitely. All right, well, let's move away from movie discussions. And there've only been 2 Young Justice new episodes that have aired since our last podcast. There's no new Young Justice episodes for most of June, and I haven't seen the schedule for July as yet, so we'll keep an eye on the website for our Superman on TV weekly news articles in regards to upcoming episodes that are on TV in a given week. But let's discuss episode 6 of season 2, which was titled Bloodlines, which saw Bart Allen come from the future and there was some interesting developments there with the real Roy Harper being found. And what did you make of this episode?
Well, I just got to say, going in, when you have 2 episodes like these 2 episodes,
you don't need any more.
You don't need any more episodes. Eventually you do, but I mean, these are so good, and I'm so pleased because, who cares about Green Arrow? Who cares about the 4th Flash? But I do in these stories. I mean, these are written so well. Obviously some people are fans of Bart Allen, but I mean, specifically, if you're going to pick a favorite character, generally it's going to be Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern. It's going to be the ones we know, the ones that are big. It's not going to be their sidekicks, their 3rd sidekicks, their 4th sidekick. I don't even know how Bart Allen is related. I have no understanding of that, but the story was so good. The story was so deep, and it was another one of those episodes, and they do it so well in this series where they show you something, you don't know what it is, and then they turn it around, and at the end of the episode, you're looking at something different, and I love it. I love the way they do it. Sometimes you don't want to admit this kind of thing, but I have gotten misty watching more of these episodes than I do on some live-action TV shows.
Fair enough, too, because there's so much character depth to these characters. I mean, everyone's got a secret. Everyone's got some kind of an underlying thing that they're not just 2-dimensional characters. I mean, yes, they're 2-dimensional cartoon characters, but the actual characters themselves, the in-depth personalities, they've got hidden secrets, they've got agendas, they've got relationships, and it's not your dad. It's not your granddad's Super Friends anymore.
Not at all. If you and you and I are old enough and also interested enough in this genre to have seen those shows. But if you put this show up against the Super Friends, you don't even know what you're looking at. I mean, it's not even, and it's unfortunate that it's not the main guys, but it almost doesn't matter. They're written so well that I care about these characters now. I mean, I always kind of was interested in Superboy because he was connected to Superman, but, now I want to see what's going on with Miss Martian, and I care about Kid Flash, and I'm disappointed that he and Artemis, have retired, and it was cool to see him back in action in this, and I felt bad for him when they were kind of showing him up. And he's nobody. He's nobody. Exactly. And I almost, it felt to me like the whole Batman-Superman argument. The whole, why do we have to make one guy look really bad, just because the other 2 are here? But it was cool to see the Flash, who isn't one of the main people on Young Justice, kind of be a primary player. Mm-hmm. He was involved. He was a big part of the plot. He was there, and it was neat. And the whole Roy Harper thing still going on. They've got these underlying themes in these plots that have been going on since the beginning of the show. 26 episodes in the first season, and now 6 episodes in, and we find out, and that whole Roy Harper thing, through the first season, finding out he wasn't the real guy, and now finding out that, the real guy was killed long ago, and now we find out maybe he wasn't, and then here he is.
Here he is, minus a hand, and the clone Roy Harper he has a child with Cheshire, so they're blending the heroes and the villains aren't necessarily as black and white as what you grew up with the, like I said, with the Super Friends and the older cartoons, and
Super Friends, I will destroy you.
They really blur the lines.
Like villains call them Super Friends.
Yeah.
You Super Friends.
You do that well.
Oh, thank you.
Now we move on to episode 7.
You want to do voiceover work, or you're looking at making the next movie and you want it to be a little more like the original Super Friends, give me a call. I'll be around.
Definitely. Now episode 7, as I was saying, was called Depths, and in this one we saw Cape Canaveral launch, where they're trying to install some communication device between Earth and Mars, and there's a bit of Godfrey's against it, and is on TV, saying, with all this xenophobia about aliens, and then we see, as you're saying in the previous one, with Kid Flash coming out of retirement kind of thing, and this one we see Artemis having her turn to go undercover and get back into the superhero gig, and we assume that she gets killed.
Every time I turn around on this show, I go, I think this was the best episode I have ever seen of this show. And it's like every third episode I say that because they keep doing it to me. They keep topping themselves. They keep making awesome, incredible shows. And that whole Artemis Killed thing, a few episodes ago, when Aqualad was shown as hanging out with Black Manta, and we had no idea how this happened, because we're 5 years into the future, and they skipped over a whole bunch of stuff. I was like, what the hell? Something's got to be going on. There's got to be, for some reason, during that 5-year time, the timeline was changed. We're in an alternate reality. Something's going on. I said he's not. He's just not what he appears to be. Something is wrong, and I don't know what it is, but he is not what he appears to be. And again, a year, 2-3 years ago, I would have said Aqualad. Who the hell cares what Aqualad's doing? I mean, that's just a goof. That's something they made up just to sell little kids comics, right? But now I trusted him. I found him to be a member of the team. I found him to be cool and interesting and somebody that I wanted around. And now they're doing this to me, and I say this can't be right. The way they open the show, it's so dramatic and quick. And I go, what? And then they come back and we see how it all plays out, and I'm like, oh, okay, I guess he is. I'm wrong. There isn't anything wrong. He's just, a
nasty piece
really,
of work.
Really bad guy. And then
they pulled
I swear they turned it around on me again. They had me fooled, and I generally think of myself as a pretty intelligent guy, though the interwebs are starting to prove to me, all of the bloggers and the people who talk to me are calling me names and proving to me that I'm not that intelligent based on the things that I say. But and then this show does this to me when I was sure he couldn't be bad, and then they showed me that he really was because of what he did, and then not 2 minutes later we find out that in fact I was duped again.
Yeah, he's a double agent, and it's a really convoluted, intermingled. It's just there's a lot of threads that are just interwoven, and it's just really well written and well beyond the kid cartoons that we grew up with on Saturday mornings. And it's a fantastic cartoon, very well written, as I said, and just a lot of intrigue there. And you just want to, can't wait for the next episode to find out how it's all going to play out.
It's just so great, and then the way that they flash back and re-show you from a different vantage point, and how it happened when you go, what we saw this. It's just
it's great.
I can't say enough about it.
So we wait for Cartoon Network to announce when further new episodes will be revealed on their Saturday morning. So we wait for further announcements about Young Justice, because we're looking forward to episode 8 of season 2 whenever that shall appear on our screen. So keep an eye out on the Superman homepage for that announcement. Now, you haven't caught up on your comic book reading as of yet, but it behooves us to discuss Action Comics number 10, which was the Clark Kent is Dead story. And that was the interior title of the comic book too. It's just not my notes that I've written down there.
Oh, well. Sounds like a story I might have heard from a few years ago. Wasn't there like an all-white cover and a pair of broken glasses?
Shiny, very. It was one of the first comic books I actually ever bought. Was the Death of Clark Kent storyline from the comic books. But in this one, we see this bounty hunter who's been hired to kill Superman. He's we saw him in Action Comics number 9 at the end. I think, what was he shooting, a dinosaur or something, or some kind of an animal
creature, something.
And someone was saying to him, how would you feel about killing a bulletproof man? And he's saying, there's no such thing as bulletproof. And so he comes to Metropolis to hunt down Clark Kent, who he obviously knows somehow is Superman. And in one of those kind of Young Justice moments, they pull the rug out from under us, and Clark Kent is killed, but not by this hunter. He's killed in an explosion, and Superman comes about and he's still around, but everybody assumes, everyone at the Daily Planet, everybody at the Daily Star, think Clark Kent is dead, and they're I'll be really interested to see how they get out of this, because
it's one of those things where, like in the Doomsday thing, it really is nonsensical. But I mean, Clark went out to cover it or whatever, and the excuse was that for the 6 months Superman was gone, he was buried under rubble, and it makes no sense. But okay, somebody doesn't go, you know what, I think maybe you weren't buried under rubble.
Well, the Daily Planet and Daily Star staff get together and in a nice additional story that they have at the back of the backup story in these issues. They're all, giving their anecdotes about Clark and what a great guy he was and some of the things he did, and he's watching from a distance, listening to all these great stories being told about him, and I'm really keen to find out how they're going to get out of this one, or what they're going to do for Clark Kent to be able to...
Do they have a body? I mean, did they find a body in the rubble?
No, not that I don't recall that they did, but he was going to stop a guy from committing suicide and like suicide bomber, and he was right next to him when he exploded, so I don't know how they're going to get out of it.
And the whole building came down, and
there was the foyer area, the whole front of the building was destroyed. So
but it seems like they'll just do the same thing. Oh, I was under the rubble. I'm fine.
Yeah, I lived on a puddle of water for 6 months.
That's right. In this case, it doesn't have to be 6 months because
it could be a couple of weeks.
Superman's actually still around, so but
it
sounds like something.
I don't know if they're going to do that.
Again.
Yeah, I mean that seems like the easy way out, but we are talking about Grant Morrison, so who knows?
Exactly.
Now, Supergirl number 10 sees the conclusion of the Banshee story, and we've got the Black Banshee, who is the father of Siobhan Smythe, who is the Silver Banshee, and Supergirl gets in issue number 9 gets sucked into the Black Banshee and is in this issue seen to be having a nightmare of some kind that's made up of memories from Krypton with her mother, and some of the things that some of the memories that she had with her mother, some of the events that they shared together, but they're twisted with a more sinister note, and Supergirl realizes that they're not memories, that they are, they didn't happen the way that they're playing out now, and so she realizes it's the Black Banshee at work, and she recalls the fight, and she recalls being subsumed by him and taken inside of him, and she fights within, and Siobhan's brother is in there as well, because remember he got sucked in as a boy to try to save Siobhan, and it all plays out, and together they save the day, and the Silver Banshee ends up actually consuming the Black Banshee, so she's more powerful now, but the sight of her brother brings her back to her persona as Siobhan, and the three of them fly away as the police or the government with helicopters once again come in to try to bring down Supergirl and take her into custody.
What I like about this is, and you were talking about it with the Young Justice show, is that all of the characters, maybe the mains, have even had less development than a lot of the villains and secondaries in this new relaunch so far, and maybe that's because they feel like people already know the popular characters and they're trying to flesh out other people, but the idea that the villains aren't just one note to kind of, I'm a bad guy because I'm bad.
Yeah.
That it almost seems like it's more of a fight, more of a struggle to try and stay a reasonable person and try and fight this darkness and kind of forge your own way, as opposed to just saying, well, I'm the Silver Banshee, so I'm going to do what my dad was doing or whatever.
No, it's probably my favourite version of the Silver Banshee to date, because they've fleshed out her character, and she's not just, I'm cursed by my family tradition and that's who I am. She has a real character. Her alter ego is someone that is very likable and seems to be someone that can really befriend Supergirl, especially because she can actually speak any language that she hears. She can automatically speak it, so she's able to communicate with Supergirl in Kryptonian, which to this point in time, Supergirl's felt very isolated because she doesn't understand English and nobody can understand her. So to have a friend who she can actually speak to and have that be Siobhan Smythe, who is the Silver Banshee, just adds a real element to the Supergirl book.
Now, that is still a bit of a bother, though, and I've heard Jeffrey Bridges mention it several times, and maybe it's just that both these characters are extremely busy. I mean, after all, Clark Kent is dead in his book, but it's almost like the Young Justice thing that I had a problem with last year, that Superman just doesn't seem like Superman. He seems like a guy who is just kind of lackadaisical when it comes to, and non-apathetic when it comes to people who are related to him. Why isn't he confronting Superboy? Why isn't he helping Supergirl? Why isn't he? She doesn't have to feel isolated because she has two other relatives, or at least semi-relatives, that could be talking to her. And I understand it's their own books. It's the same kind of thing with Young Justice. The show is about the Young Justice members. It's not about Superman and Wonder Woman, but it just kind of makes them look less the great heroes we thought that they were when they seemingly ignore these young people who are having a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and it just comes down to, I guess, company logistics. In a real-world situation, Superman would be around Supergirl and would be helping her, but obviously intercompany things with, no, this is my book, I'm writing it, this character can't appear because he's in this world, he's being written by this other writer, and yeah, it doesn't really make sense, but I guess that's just the way it is, and these writers obviously want to be able to do their own thing with the character without having other characters come in. It's the old argument, with Justice League Elite, with the movie. Why didn't Superman call on the rest of the Justice League to help him? Well, because it's called Superman versus the Elite.
Exactly. But in that movie, we see that there's no Justice League and Superman's the only guy. And they could have done that when they launched this. If this was going to be an issue and a problem, they could say that each individual character is by themselves, except in the Justice League book. But then that's a separate world where they're in the Justice. But they don't do that. They talk about all the other happenings, and they know the other characters, and they know of them, and yet they're never involved, except when they want to do a crossover.
Yeah, well, Superman, as you know, did appear with Supergirl in one issue, and then it was kind of like she didn't believe him, and so...
And so he said, who cares about her?
Yeah, she punched him away, and then she met Superboy, and then she called him Con-El and gave him his name of, which means abomination. So now he's using that as his moniker, and
that's what I would do.
Yeah. But I understand your problem with it, but I guess it's just something that they do within a company that it's just the way it is. No real rhyme or reason about it, but. It kind of comes down to our next topic, which is the Smallville comic book, and during the whole Smallville TV series run, they were trying to bring in Batman all the time, and they couldn't do it because of intercompany problems with licensing, and we've got a big movie being done with Batman, so you can't use him at the moment because somebody else from Warner Brothers is using him. But now we see that he will be coming into the Smallville universe via the season 11 comic books.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing. I mean, I think what it was this whole idea that Batman was Nolan's baby, and we're going to make this serious version of Batman, and Smallville's an alternate universe and a different kind of reality, and you can have certain characters come in because they're not being used or whatever, but we don't want to confuse people with Batman, and I gotta say, he looks kind of strange in the solicits we've seen for this new comic book.
And a female Robin.
Yeah, I heard that's Stephanie. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah, that's kind of an odd way to go for the launch of Batman and Robin. But maybe he's already gone through the other Robins, or I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah, so we'll wait for future issues of Smallville season 11 to find out.
I know how it's going to play out, and I'll tell you in a quick 2 words. Please. Batman wins.
Oh, yeah, well, that goes without saying, doesn't it?
Well, of course. Yeah. Well, he's better.
Now, to date, the Smallville comic books have been doing very, very well in the sales charts with the digital comic books. Issues 1 and 2 in printed form are now out, and we'll wait for the sales data from those months to see how the printed version has gone. But as far as the digital chapters are concerned, they're topping the sales charts every time I look at the Comixology website and iTunes and what have you to see just how the sales of those books are going. And season 11 chapters are always on the top spot. So they seem to be selling very, very well. To date, Chapter 7 was probably the worst of the 7 that we've seen so far. Chapter 8 was a lot better, and it was just out this week, and we will wait for the review, which will probably be up on the website as you're listening to this, from Mark Pritchard. But so far, so good with the Smallville Season 11 comic books. So I've been enjoying reading each digital chapter as they come out on a Friday.
Just a sad state of affairs when one of the lowest rated television shows on, dropping steadily from the beginning, is selling more comics than other comics that have been around and that are supposed to have such a huge fan base or whatever. And I'm happy about it in a way because I like the whole idea of continuing some TV shows and but it almost it gives you the false impression that Smallville was super popular. And I mean, yes, it lasted 10 years, which also gives you a false impression that it was super popular. It was barely living by the end, and it was high, I guess, considered on that network. But even on that network, I see a lot of their shows are at 5 million, 6 million viewers, and Smallville had 2 by the end, less than 2. And speaking of Smallville, you mentioned that the Silver Banshee in Supergirl Comics is your favorite version of the Silver Banshee, but nothing could possibly beat the season 10 episode. Was it called Banshee?
I think it was.
So, you're throwing all your credibility out the window when you say something.
Well, come on, what about Mixie Pitlick? Surely the Smallville version of him was your favorite.
Wow. How could he not be? I mean, clearly he's a Russian guy who has some sort of time-stopping powers. I mean...
So... I don't know. Obviously, there's a lot of people who are interested. A lot of people are saying that the Smallville version of Superman in comic books is, the version that they're most familiar with because they're not happy with the New 52 version. And so what they're seeing in Smallville's comic books is more in line with the Superman that they want to read about.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, again, I think that's people really judging based on the look and the idea that they didn't like the whole back history being thrown out. But, I mean, he, to me, seems like the same guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he still is who he is. And
he still doesn't have the red trunks.
Well, I guess that's where I'm wrong.
Well, so that's what's happening with the Smallville comic books. And in other comic book news, there was rumours going around early on about Dan Jurgens and Keith Giffen being replaced already after 6 issues on the Superman title, the Superman monthly title. And we found out that, yes, it has been confirmed that Scott Lobdell, who's writing the Superboy monthly title, will come on as the new writer for the monthly Superman title, which had me bemused.
Yeah, and I've heard, and I got to agree to a certain extent, a lot of fans are kind of upset about this because we haven't seen a lot of development so far, and a lot of people find that Superboy is the weakest book of the Superman titles, and now we have the guy who has been penning the weakest book coming on to Superman, that is the core title, and people are a little chagrined about this and a little upset and a little concerned.
Yeah.
I personally have been a little left out when it comes to Superboy. I wanted to like it, but I don't like the art either. So, I mean, hopefully, maybe the art here with Kenneth Rocafort will be better. But with Scott Lobdell as the writer, I'm not sure. Maybe because the story is already in motion, maybe because he already has an established character, whereas Superboy was kind of being rewritten as new and different than what we've seen before. But it's a little confounding, as you say.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't really set the world on fire with the Superboy title, so hopefully that's just an aberration in his writing history, and that Superman will be better than ever. But September will see the first Scott Lobdell issue, which is the 0 issue, because it's a 0 month in September, and we'll just wait and see. We've seen Kenneth Rocafort's Superman as an image that will appear on the previews catalogue for that month. So and that's the first and only look we've got to see of what Kenneth will be doing with Superman, and it's an interesting look, and it's, you know, I have no problem with his artwork, so I'm just hoping that the writing style of Scott Lobdell is something that we can latch onto.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully he'll pick up when it comes to Superman. We'll have to see. I was going to ask you. I wonder if it's one of those things where people aren't able to keep up with the deadlines, and they're trying to stay on point, where they said they're always going to come out every month and they're not going to have delays, even though we've seen delays. Maybe they're just they're giving these people a chance, and then they say, look, we understand that you're an artiste and all, but we need to get these books out there on time. The comic book industry is dying. We're having trouble selling books. We're trying to get this new 52 thing to really be on the lips of people going into the second year, and we need to have people that can get the books out on time, and unfortunately you're not doing that. I don't know if that's the case, but it just seems, you're right, it seems odd that they would set up a plan to purposely say, well, for these several issues we're going to have 2 people, and then we're going to have 2 new people after 6 issues, and then we're going to have 2 new people after that.
So anyway.
On the other hand, I don't think creators stay with a book for years and years and years.
No, but 6
based
months
on what
at
I
a
have
time
seen.
seems a bit rushed.
Yeah.
But will be interesting to see what happens with Superboy now that Lobdell's leaving that issue, and whether that picks up. It'll be interesting to keep an eye on both titles as the months progress. Now, as I already mentioned, that 0 issues will be appearing in September, and that'll be interesting. I mean, we're already going back to a previous time after the relaunch was only 12 months ago, so it's like a restart of a restart.
But I guess it's only going to be for that 1 issue, just to see kind of a little more of the backstory that maybe some people are missing.
Yeah. So that's comic book discussions. Now, in other news, we've had a few video games announced, and the Lego Batman 2 DC Superheroes video game is now available, and by all reports, it's fantastic. I'm really looking forward to playing this one. I've enjoyed a lot of the Lego games to date, and this one seems, with Superman involved, and with this, being able to freely roam around Gotham, and from all accounts, this is the best Superman game to date. You actually get to use Superman's powers. He's invulnerable. None of the villains can actually do anything to harm Superman. He's able to fly around freely, use heat vision, use super breath.
And he drives the Batmobile incredibly
if you want him to. But and the Superman theme, starts up every time you launch into the sky.
Oh, that's cool. I wasn't sure if that was just something that people added when they uploaded the video, or if that was actually in the game.
Actually in the game.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah, no. So there's a review up on the Superman homepage for the Xbox 360 version. I'll personally be getting the Wii version, so hopefully it's very similar gameplay. And so if you're interested, Lego Batman 2 DC Superheroes is out now, and is supposedly well worth it. So check that out. But we did get an announcement about a game coming up in 2013 called Injustice: Gods Among Us.
Nice. Yeah, I watched the trailer for that. I'm sure a lot of you did as well, and it definitely looks really cool. I mean, obviously it's a fighting game, so it's going to have that fighting game mechanic and that fighting game plot, which it almost seems like we've already seen this with the DC versus Mortal Kombat game that was out a few years ago.
Well,
but
it's by the same company, NetherRealm Studios, who are famous for the Mortal Kombat games, and so it seems to be based on the same kind of premise and same engine, and it's not one of those very high brain thing that you need to the superheroes go bad for some reason, and they fight each other.
It's very simple.
So
it's another one of these things where many of my internet, I won't call them friends, will have a problem with what I'm going to say here. But here again, we have Batman taking punches from Superman and being throwing other people into space and smashing people through walls, and it's very, very funny to see.
Yeah, and they have put a kind of a Mortal Kombat spin on the costume designs for each of these characters with a real metallic armor type of appearance to each of these characters, which is not a bad look. It's something different. It's their own take, and it's still very recognizable as each of the heroes, but it doesn't like I said, not a very highbrow concept, but still a lot of fun for fighting fanatics, for fighting game fanatics, and for DC fans.
Yeah, I mean, I'm down to take a look at it for sure, and I actually like the look. I like the artwork. I like how it came about. The design of all the uniforms is kind of cool.
Yeah, so that's in 2013, I think the first quarter, titled Injustice, Gods Among Us. I'm sure we'll be hearing more about that as it gets closer to its release. Now, before we move into our big questions segment of the show, we should mention that the Superman celebration took place in Metropolis, Illinois, in the second weekend of June, as it does every year. And this year they had, as we mentioned before, John Glover, Cassidy Freeman, Gerard Christopher, and John Rockwell were the special guests. George Perez was also there from the comic book world. And the videos are starting to filter up onto the Superman homepage. We've got the Q&As for the Smallville stars, the Q&A for the Superboy stars, and the Q&A for George Perez as well are all available on the Superman homepage, thanks to Jamie Kelly. And you check those out while he gets ready the rest of the reports from the Superman celebration in Metropolis, Illinois.
Yeah, it was a good time for a lot of people. I've been hearing great things about it. They have there's a couple of Facebook pages for people who are fans of the celebration, and Steve and I were there in 2008. It sounds like we're trying to go back in 2013. I'm not a big fan of like street fair, county fair type of feeling, and that's kind of what this is. But the idea that it's all Superman related and Superman based, and there's a lot of Superman fans there, and everywhere you look there's somebody with a Superman shirt on, and then you got Superman celebrities, and it's a really neat thing.
It is, and the Superman homepage meet and greet took place there on the Friday morning at the Hardee's restaurant there, and it looks like we had about 100 people turn up, and there were lots of DVDs and Blu-rays to give away, and Superman homepage badges to give away. So looking forward to seeing the report from that. I've seen a lot of photos already from the meet and greet, and it looks like a lot of fun. It's come a long way since the time that we met at the park bench behind the Superman statue on the grass there. Now we've got an official location, a room, an air-conditioned room, and lots of people turning up and lots of prizes and giveaways each year.
Great. Sounds fantastic.
So it'll be an absolutely enormous one if we can all get there next year for that 2013 Superman celebration, with the Man of Steel being released, and with the 75th anniversary of Superman as well. So
I'm excited about that.
Big one already planned for next year. Now, before we move into the big question, some people have been asking what happened to the Superman Last Son of Krypton and Supergirl Lost Daughter of Krypton audio dramas from Pendant Productions. Unfortunately, they've had to stop those fan-made audio dramas, and they're only concentrating on the original creations of their own. And so the properties of DC Comics and other Star Wars and whatever other ones they did have had to be they've stopped doing those of their own accord, probably preempting any moves from with copyright issues. But they've stopped doing those and are concentrating on creator-owned stories and audio dramas that they're continuing on from this point onwards.
Yeah, I heard about that. It's unfortunate, I guess, for people who are fans of those, and I know people were disappointed in that these stories didn't end, and they weren't meant to end. In general, they were supposed to go on and on and on, just like comics do, a new story every month. But for whatever reason, as you say, preemptive, my guess would be that it's not preemptive, but that they were sent a cease and desist, or they were asked to stop, or they know that it's coming. Otherwise, they would have been able to finish it out, or at least write a few, because there's several months in it. I've worked on a few of their episodes. I'm Robin in the Batman thing, and they have. You send in lines 3 and 4 months in advance, and they have these shows done. So they had time to at least wrap it up if they weren't kind of under the gun and forced in some way.
Yeah, so wait until, if unfortunately they didn't get to finish those off, but continue checking out pendantaudio.com for their creator-owned audio dramas that are still very good.
Let's start with the big question.
Last month's question was submitted by Chris G, and he asked, who is your favorite voice of Superman and why?
That's right. Chris was, I think he's visually impaired, and so the audio versions of the character are what he really latches onto, and he himself wrote in an answer. What did he have to say?
Well, he said, first of all, thanks for submitting this to the big question. I would have to say that my favorite is Bud Collyer in The Adventures of Superman. The way he switched from Clark Kent to Superman, you would think he was two people, and he didn't sound the same between the two roles. Thanks again for doing such a fine job. Your love of the character really shows with your dedication.
Well, thank you very much, Chris, and thanks once again for submitting such a great big question. We had quite a few responses, and further on we had Bob Moorhead, who wrote, I am nowhere near old enough to have enjoyed the old radio show when it first aired, but I caught up with it a few years ago on MP3. No one beats Bud Collier's portrayal of Man of Steel. As a kid, I listened to his portrayal in the old Filmation cartoons. Because of that, to this day, it's Collier's voice in my head when I read a Superman comic book.
Oh, that's cool. If I was Collier, I would be so proud. I'm sure he's not around anymore,
no, he's
but
not.
I mean, for me, like a lot of these guys, you hear about certain actors who play superheroes kind of saying things like, I don't want to be attached with that for the rest of my life. I don't want to be remembered for that. That's not all I do, this and that. And I understand that you want to have a wide and varied career. But if I were ever asked to portray one of my favorite superheroes, I would be honored. And I would love the idea that children looked up to me and thought that I was playing Superman or whatever. And,
it's interesting that you say that, because originally Bud Collyer did not want to have anything to do with the Superman radio series. He was tricked into auditioning for it, and then tricked into it again, and told him, look, it'll probably never see the light of day. And he ended up playing the character for 11 years and absolutely loved it beyond that point, but originally didn't want to have anything to do with it, thought it was a silly idea. But for 11 years he did it on radio, and then he also did it for the 1940s Fleischer cartoons, and then returned to the character in 1966 to do it for the Filmation cartoons. So that's like something like 30 years of being connected with the Superman character, and he is a definitive voice for Superman for many people, as we're hearing in these responses.
And you get one of those things where you see he must have clearly really gotten a lot of satisfaction out of it for him to keep going back and doing it.
Yep.
On the other hand, you have somebody like Bela Lugosi who has got stuck kind of only playing those monster roles and kind of depressed and dying broke and kind of getting screwed out of any other opportunities. So I can understand that idea that you may not want to be associated with such a iconic thing that's kind of going to eclipse you. But it seems like Collier had a good time with it. And,
I guess being a voice character makes it easier not to get typecast, especially with someone as talented as he was. He ended up going on to be a host of a TV game show, which he was probably most known for as visually for people who recognised him. But his voice is always going to be connected with Superman.
No, the other thing with that is a big schlub like me could actually play Robin. Because you could only hear my voice.
That's right. It doesn't matter what you look like.
They're not casting me as Robin in a live-action show, you know what I'm saying? Calvin Bowes wrote in an answer. He's one of our regular writers in. He said, the answer to your question is easy. My favorite all-time audio representation of Supes is Bud Collyer. He's also my favorite Superman. When you listen to him, you believe there's two separate actors playing Clark and Superman, and he very clearly defined both characters. Bud is my favorite all-time Superman. No one else comes close. Sorry, Kirk, George, Christopher, Dean, Brandon, and Henry, but Bud Collyer is the best.
Yeah, well, that's a pretty definitive answer there from Calvin. His daughter Starla writes in and she says, today for the first time my daddy played a show for me that was incredible. It was the Superman radio show that he teamed up with Batman. I never listened to an old radio show before, but this was great, and the guy who played him, whose name escapes me, was the best I ever heard. I always thought that the stories would be done without pictures, but I was mesmerised by that guy's performance. I wish I knew his name, but he's the best audio Superman. Well, we can tell you, Starla, that his name is Bud Collyer.
Bud Collyer. Argent L wrote in, hey Scott, Steve, I can't comment on which audio version of Superman I like the best, as I also haven't heard very many of them. I do remember a comedian once doing his version of the George Reeves Superman TV episode, The Brainy Burro, in fake Spanish. I can't recall how he did Superman, but I remember thinking you really could tell when it was Jimmy, and certainly when it was the Burro. I think I hear Tim Daly when I read the comics, although sometimes I still hear Christopher Reeve. So it goes to show that even in the film versions, the voice is just as important as the visuals. As for Smallville, I prefer it in a completely finished and beautifully printed book, and the sooner the better, of course. Cheers.
Thank you, Argent. Some great thoughts there. Not a mention of Bud Collyer.
Yes.
Now, Hector writes in and he says, I like The Last Son of Krypton from Pennant Production because it's the only audio I heard of Superman so far. Sadly, they're gone.
Sorry to hear that, Hector. But maybe you just want to go back and listen to a couple minutes earlier. Joe Sergey wrote, obviously, Bud Collyer invented the Superman voice, but that's too easy. And while the graphic audio's James Konachek does an amazing job as the Man of Steel and also Commissioner Gordon, which was surreal, my vote for the best portrayal goes to the lead actor in the Kingdom Come audiobook. I think it was Mike Mirian, but I could be wrong. He was heroic and determined and perfectly captured the weariness and frustration of having old-fashioned values in a modern world.
Yeah, I remember the Kingdom Come audio book, and yes, it was Mike Mirian was the voice actor for that role. He did a very good job of that. It was very believable as an older Superman, so a nice nod to him there from Joe. Now, Mikey B sent us in an audio response, as he does from time to time, so let's hear what Mikey had to say.
Hey Steve, hey Scotty, it's Mikey B. Well, I guess I thought I'd do another audio response for an audio question. It's pretty simple for me. It's the Superman radio series from the 1940s. I especially like Superman vs. Atom Man. I had borrowed that from the library and CD set, and it was just great to listen to. And they're just fun. They're really well done. They're fun to listen to. The voice acting is generally very good. So that would probably be my favorite. But I got to tell you, there's just so many great audio experiences with Superman. It doesn't matter if you listen to one of the soundtracks. I know there's some books that have audio versions, and there's just a lot of great Superman audio. But again, Superman the radio series. Okay, guys, great job as always. Take care.
Well, there you go. Another vote for Bud Collyer.
Bud Collyer seems to have taken it in a landslide.
Now, everyone mentions in all those responses pretty much about how Bud Collyer portrayed Superman and Clark Kent as two separate people, and you could believe that it was two separate people. Now, I've got a clip here from an episode of the 1940s radio series. It was called Last of the Clipper Ships, and it aired in March and April of 1941. And here it's what you'll find to set this up is Clark Kent, Jimmy Olsen, and another young kid, I forget his name at the moment, are in a dungeon of an old ship, and the candle or the light, the oil lamp, is about to go out, and it's to Clark's benefit because while he's chained up with Jimmy and the other young lad, he can't do anything as Superman to break them free. And so in the pitch blackness of their cell, he makes out that Superman has also appeared in there, and what you're going to hear is Bud Collyer playing both roles of Clark Kent and Superman, and even having a conversation with himself. So have a listen to Bud Collyer.
The oil lamp is starting to flicker.
That means it's going out, don't it?
Yes, that means it's going out. The oil is all used up.
All right, it's going out. So what? There it goes. See? It's out. Fine. I hope that's the end of that.
Hey, ain't that swell? It's pitch black in here. The light ain't shining in my eyes no more. I can get some shut-eye now.
You're going to get as sick of the darkness as you did of that Oh, now I'm starting to talk about it.
Now to make use of the darkness.
Did you say something, Mr. Kent?
Yes, I said I thought there was someone in here with us.
Someone in this dungeon with us?
Well, there wasn't anyone in here when the light went out.
But there is someone here now, Jim.
Superman.
Don't be silly, Jim. Who is it? Who's in here?
Jim's right. Superman. I've come to help you, all of you.
Superman? Is that the guy
No
that...
time for talk, Pug. You can talk later. Now listen to me. This is what I want to do. You two boys are going to stay down here for a while.
Yes, sir.
Oh, wait a minute. What about me, Superman?
You, Mr. Kent, are going to come with me. I may need you. Now here, let me get you out of those irons.
Boy, listen to that guy bust those chains. Hey, Mr. Bustard, will you?
No, not now. I must work fast. If you're all set, Mr. Kent, come along with me.
Yes, I'm all set.
Well, if you never believed in Superman before, Mr. Kent, you better start believing in him now.
All right, you boys. You'll stay here till I accomplish what I've come for. I'll return or send someone to release you. All right, Kent. Let's go.
That door is locked, mister, and it's a heavy door made of oak. Hey, do you think you're
One
gonna...
stroke with my fist against the lock.
Hey, Jim, you hear that? He done it.
And now, Mr. Kent, after you.
You see, Pug, I told you it was Superman. I told you was...
It worked. My trick of talking to myself in two voices worked perfectly. Oh, thank heaven I was able to assume my guise of Superman without revealing my identity to the boys.
That was funny. He keeps laughing to himself, too. It worked.
I mean, how it just sounds like two different people, doesn't it?
It does, very much. It's very cool.
So that's from the 1941 episode from the Superman radio series. All right, well, what's our new big question for this month, Scott?
Well, before we get into that, I just want to show you that Bud Collyer, but I can do it too.
Oh, okay, please,
so,
this is great.
Here I go.
Hey, you guys, this is me, it's Superman. No, it's Clark.
See? See how good?
Yeah, very believable.
I mean, you can't even tell that it's the same person.
Not at all.
Fantastic.
That's amazing.
Our new big question is, which is the best Superman DC Universe animated movie to date, and why?
Yeah, well, it's a difficult choice for me. Superman vs. Elite is obviously the one I've just seen, and it's probably, like I said, the most adult of the films, so I'm leaning towards that one at the moment, maybe because it's the most freshest in my memory, but also partial to the Superman Batman Public Enemies and Superman Batman Apocalypse, so they were both pretty good as well.
Yeah, we'll have to rack our brains and see if we can come up with a reason why one should be better than another.
Yeah, well, we want to know your thoughts out there. What do you think is the best Superman DC Universe animated movie to date? I don't think we're going to be getting a lot of votes for Brainiac Attacks somehow.
Oh, you think? Well, you think that nothing's going to come in for that, huh? Yeah. Well, I'm holding out hope because I do so like the Lex Luthor of that series.
Yeah, the Luau Lex Luthor.
Yes, indeed.
So let us know. Get involved with the Big Question segment of the show by sending in your entry to this month's Big Question. You can do that by clicking on the Big Question button found at the Superman homepage. And we'll read out the responses next month. Or like Mikey B did, you can send in an audio response as an MP3 file, and we will play that in here in this next edition of Radio KAL. I
personally am looking forward to the Season 12 Smallville animated DC Universe movie.
Nice.
Yes, don't get excited, everyone. I do this every month.
Only one thing alive with less than 4 legs can hear this frequency, Superman, and that's you.
Last month's sound came from the movie Superman Returns and was a line spoken by the character Richard White. 10 people guessed it correctly, and they were Edward Cianti, Brandon Brendan Savinsky, Rick Ruiz, Brian Pride, Matthew Epps, Brandon Whitmore, Landon, Mikey B, Argent L, and Joe Sergi.
Yeah, I'm not making up these names just to try to trip you, to get your tongue twisted. They're real respondents for the Secret Sound-Byte, and congratulations to all those 10 people for guessing it right.
We had a lot this month.
Yeah, it's a few more than we've had for quite a while. Let's see if they and more can guess where in the world this new Super Secret Soundbite comes from.
You think I'd be crazy enough to meet you without some kind of protection?
Well, if you think you know where in the world of Superman that sound came from, use the Super Secret Soundbite entry form found at the Superman homepage and send your entry in. Each person will have their name read out and probably mispronounced by Scotty V next month on Radio KAL.
How dare you?
Maybe you'll sing it next month. Wouldn't that be great to hear you sing everybody's names?
Sing all their names? Well, let's hope there's like 3 respondents next month.
Let's move
the
into
Superman
the
song for this month is Ride, Superman, Ride. Depending on how you read that, it could come off in a different way. By Stomp Gordon and his orchestra. This was the B-side of their 1956 vinyl single, Oh Tell Me Why.
Here it is, Ride, Superman, Ride by Stomp Gordon and his orchestra.
Was it a bird? No, no. Was it a plane? No, no. Was it a buzzard? No, no. Well, what was it then? Mr. Superman. Ride, ride, ride. Mr. Superman. Ride, ride, ride. Like a rocket. Ride, ride, ride. What a wonder. Ride, ride, ride. Balls of thunder. Ride, ride, ride. Here comes the enemy. Blow down, blast them down any way you get them down. Hey, Mr. Superman, I've got a job for you. Hey, Mr. Superman, I've got a job for you. Batman stole your baby and away, way, way he flew. Hey, Mr. Superman, fly like a jet mobile. Hey, Mr. Superman, fly like a jet mobile. Just to see you two fight would give me a bad big thrill. Hey, now, ride, 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 Mr. Superman. Ride, 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 like a rocket. Ride, 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 what a wonder. Ride, 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 balls of thunder. Ride, ride, ride. Here comes the enemy. Blow them down, blast them down any way you get them down. Was it a bird? No, no. Was it a plane? No, no. Was it a buzzard? No, no. What was it then? Mr. Superman.
Well, that's the show for another month.
Stomp Gordon, everybody.
Yes, I wonder if Stomp's still alive. Probably not, if it was a 56 release, but Ride, Superman, Ride was definitely an interesting one to listen to. Now, remember, the Superman homepage, Radio KAL, is open for your suggestions. If you think there's a topic that we should be discussing, if you think there's a song you'd like to hear played on Radio KAL, maybe there's a big question you'd like to pose to the fans out there, you can send in all those suggestions to us. You can email me via steve@supermanhomepage.com, or you can grab Scotty at supermanhomepage.com, and we will endeavour to use those suggestions in a future podcast. But for now, that's our show. Thank you, Scotty.
Thank you, Steve. And remember, everyone, always look up in the sky.
You've been listening to Radio KAL from supermanhomepage.com.